What's going on, everybody? I hope you're all having a wonderful day today. For those of you that are new to the channel, my name is Ty, and today in this video, I want to have a bit of a late night discussion. At least for me, right now it's about midnight, but listen, I had this interesting thought kind of just pop up in my head regarding Dune. For those of you that have, been living under a rock, Dune 2 just came out, and everyone, rightfully so, has been raving about how it's this masterpiece, this, that. It's phenomenal. Denny has another science fiction hit on his hands. But I had this thought regarding why is Dune just such a success right now? What's leading to it being just this behemoth at the box office and just everyone absolutely swarming to it and just enjoying it? And I feel like there's one factor specifically that I want to talk about. Of course, it's a great film, all of that. But there's one thing that I feel Dune is doing right now that other films aren't. And speaking of other films, like the title of this video suggests, I feel like there's something Dune, the franchise as a whole, is doing right now that Star Wars is not. And sort of just to set up my thesis here, that being that Dune is releasing high quality science fiction blockbusters in the theaters while Star Wars isn't. That's kind of my thesis for this, unedited sort of discussion here. That's what I believe. So let's dive into what I mean by that. I know it seems very simple. I want to start off by saying this. Dune Part 2, obviously, because it's so great, everyone's raving about it, like I've said already, has been being compared to all these sci-fi epics. By the way, sorry if it seems like I'm whispering a little bit right now. I'm just trying not to wake up everybody in my house. But Dune Part 2 has been being compared to all these great sci-fi sequels of all time, whether it's Aliens, or Blade Runner 2049, or The Empire Strikes Back, a Star Wars film. That's the thing that kind of just piqued my interest and just made me think, damn, that's what Dune is doing right now, like I already stated. So, moving on from that, this is the thing. Obviously, Star Wars has been in such a rut recently. Looking back on their history, we have the original trilogy in the 70s going into the 80s. Everyone loved it. Right now, to this day, it's still a cultural phenomenon. It's widely loved by everyone. I love it, for God's sakes. I'm not saying it's a bad franchise. It's arguably the most recognizable name outside of like Disney, just generally, you know what I mean? Just as a franchise. But moving on from that original trilogy, obviously there was a gap up until the prequels, and I do enjoy the prequels personally, but I feel like objectively it's fair to say the prequels are not very great films, realistically. I really like Revenge of the Sith. I don't think that episodes 1 and 2 are really all that, but I do think that from a nostalgia standpoint, from a campy standpoint, they're fun films. They're, pretty enjoyable films. They expand the lore of this beloved universe, and I think that's great. But then we take another gap to the sequel series. Sequel saga, we could say. Episodes 7, 8, 9. Episode 7, I thought was a smash hit. I love The Force Awakens. I think it's a great Star Wars film. Episode 8, we're getting into controversial territory here. I mean, it's completely divided the fan base. When you divide a fan base, that sucks. At least when the fan base can say, hey, this thing sucks, and everyone agrees, you know what? At least everyone's kind of in agreement here. But The Last Jedi just split the whole fan base. Then Rise of Skywalker, that was the one thing everyone else kind of just dogged on, which was kind of good in a way and just said, this is horrible. But Star Wars has been sort of on a cold streak in a way ever since the original trilogy that's so beloved, and it's still kind of riding that momentum. Of course, you've got things like The Mandalorian that, people love and enjoy, but some of these other shows, like The Book of Boba Fett, Obi-Wan, most of these shows, even Ahsoka maybe, and, Andor, that's another hit, have not been good. Realistically, they have not been objectively good. Even The Mandalorian Season 3, a lot of people did not like that. And I don't mean to be rambling too much about Star Wars here, but on top of that, it's been 5 years up until this point. Well, technically at the end of 2024, it'll be 5 full years since we've had a Star Wars film in the theaters. And that's okay because they're taking their time. Also, how could I forget? They had Rogue One and Solo, 2 other films that released. I really enjoyed Rogue One. I really enjoyed Solo, but they weren't like box office hits. You had to run to the theaters to see them, even though I actually really enjoy those films. What I feel Dune 2 is doing right now is filling a market need that people don't think that they need. People don't realize they need. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that that's the number one reason people are going to see this movie. First of all, word of mouth has been spreading like wildfire. You need to go see this movie on the biggest screen you can. It's a masterpiece. And of course, it's a known franchise. It's the second film to the first Dune a couple years ago that people liked. But even with that first Dune movie, again, this is based off source material from, 1965, I believe, Frank Herbert's book, Dune. And it's also a different style. It's a more serious, you could say in a way, even though it is a blockbuster, highbrow, rated R type of Star Wars in a way. Again, it's almost like highbrow. It's a little bit more artsy when it comes to the prophecies. I'd even argue it's a little bit more complicated, even though I know Star Wars can get complicated with the lore and all that. But on a general, census here, general consensus. So what I'm trying to say here is people, Star Wars fans, even just people that are yearning for Star Wars content, big sci-fi epic movies, they've been dying for that franchise feel as well. And even though Dune isn't exactly that, I think it satisfies that part of the brain. Because again, this fan base has been like, guys, please give us a great movie. And I'm not saying that Dune's going to replace like your nostalgia for Star Wars. That obviously rules over everything. People love nostalgia bait. I mean, you saw how No Way Home did, all that. I love Star Wars. I want to see a good Star Wars movie. But Dune is scratching that itch in my brain. And it's in a completely different way because Dune, I feel like, is naturally a little bit darker, a little bit more serious, a little bit, like I said, honestly, just kind of artsy because it's based off that book and things get weird. And I like that. But again, it's tapping, in a way, a market that has been untapped for a long time. I look at something like The Creator that released a couple of months ago, and the funny thing is that was actually released by Disney. Like, it was distributed by Disney at least, even though it was technically more of like an independent film. The problem is that was one of the, well, let me dive into this first. That was one of those movies where I was like, you know what? If this movie ends up being really good, make some money, maybe this could be another franchise, a sci-fi franchise that people can enjoy for the next decade if it ends up being a really great smash hit. I love Gareth Edwards, the director, whatever, he's great with the visuals. And that's kind of what the movie ended up being. Style over substance. The style was great, but the substance wasn't. And in a way, that's the same thing that's happens with these Star Wars movies recently. They're putting $200 million into these movies. They look phenomenal, but the scripts just aren't that great. You need good storytelling to sell a film franchise. That's what Star Wars fans have been complaining about. That's what a lot of fans have been complaining about, whether it's Marvel, this, that. And the creator naturally bombed at the box office, essentially, and it sucks because that, was just an original franchise that they was trying to get started up. And again, it just feels like an untapped market that Dune is nailing right now. And I love to see it. And again, of course, it's riding off the coattails of that first movie. But when you're being compared to things like The Empire Strikes Back, a movie that Star Wars fans do love, and some people are even saying it's better than that, that's great. And the reason behind that is because they have a great mind like George Lucas. Now listen, I don't want to compare people. I'm just saying someone else that is a great mind objectively, like Denny, directing these films and shepherding this franchise. And he's doing a phenomenal job between the casting, changing things up from the books to the movies. I don't really know too much about the books, but regardless, I do know that they changed some stuff, and I've heard a lot of people say they made some great changes. So, again, I know that's a bit of a darker franchise. It doesn't look like this third movie, from what I've been seeing, is gonna be like all happy and stuff, like the end of Return of the Jedi. But regardless, at this point in time, in early 2024, this movie is scratching that itch in Star Wars fans' brains, in the general audience's brains, and I truly believe that. Us as humans, us as fiction fans, we love so many different things. We love new ideas, but at the end of the day, ever since Star Wars, ever since 2001: A Space Odyssey, if you even want to go further back, has been released, I have this almost theory that people have wanted sci-fi epics in space. That's what we want. We want to see new planets. It just almost gave us this addiction because people love those films. Those films are the building blocks for directors that we know now. People like Denny look back at those movies, and that's what they try to base their new movies off of, science fiction wise at least. Not like Prisoners is going to be based off of that, of course. And I truly believe that. I hope you guys can kind of see what I'm saying here. I just feel like this Dune franchise is literally tapping into almost an untapped market. And we look at the future of Star Wars, right? As of right now, they're releasing a Mandalorian movie, which in my opinion, I get people love The Mandalorian. It doesn't make sense from a monetary standpoint why you would put $200 million into a movie that, first of all, is going to be releasing 3 years from now. So again, this market's going to remain untapped for a couple of years. But I just don't understand why you're putting so much money into a movie based off of a Disney Plus television show. The last time that you did that with the Marvels, you lost hundreds of millions of dollars, or whatever the dollar amount was. Regardless, when you make people have to do homework on your streaming service, it feels cheap. It feels like corporate slob. It feels slosh, I should say, whatever the term is. You guys get the idea, slop. It feels like this corporate garbage that we're getting kind of just shoveled at us, like, subscribe to our streaming service, subscribe to our streaming service. It sucks. I want to see great Star Wars on the big screen. Star Wars was made to go on the big screen. Do you think that George Lucas in 1977 was like, hey, you know what would be great if we had a Disney Plus television show for The New Hope? No, he made a damn movie. He wasn't worried about streaming services and all that. And I get it. Disney has to keep up with their content, whatever. But at least write good scripts and get talented people to work on these shows. I don't want to go off on a tangent. But also, speaking of keeping things divisive, like I already mentioned, apparently they're making a Rey movie. Which, listen, at a certain point, there's a phrase that I really enjoy that I've always said my whole life. Cut your losses. They lost with the Rey stuff, right? I actually kind of like Rey as a character. I don't love her. I think she's like okay. I know a lot of people hate her. But if you're Star Wars and you know that people hate her, don't make a Rey movie. Move on. Give us new characters, a new storyline. Make episode 10 a new group. Why are we going on the Rey route if you know that's the one sensitive sort of topic around the Star Wars fandom? Why would you continue down that path? It's like you're doubling down and saying, no, we don't care about you guys. We're going to stick with Rey. We support Rey. Just give it up. Sure, some people like her. Do I mind that they're making this movie? Not really. But at the same time, again, it's so divisive. It leaves such a bad taste in everyone's mouth. It's time to move on. Give us new characters. We're in a galaxy far, far away. That's what Dune has done so well, given us a new galaxy, and I get it, it's based off a book, whatever, but that doesn't matter. It's a new franchise for us, for our eyes on the screen, it's new. To someone like me, who has never read any of these books or whatever, it's new to me. So, to most of the general audience, it's new. I don't think every person that's watched the Dune movies has been like, yeah, I've also read the book. No, that's not the case. I just hope you guys kind of appreciate this kind of, topic I'm going over here. I just thought it was fascinating and interesting in a way. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below because, I just love to talk about if you guys think, in a way, this untapped market, this market need, this demand for a sci-fi epic that Star Wars has not been able to give us for the past couple of years is being tapped into by Dune. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on that. But guys, that's going to just about do it for this video today. I know this is a bit unorganized, a bit of a random video. I know I was kind of whispering a little bit here because it's pretty late right now. I think it's like 12:30. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Let me know your comments, like I said. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.